you go talk to your friends, talk to my friends, talk to me. But we are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Welcome back, you guys, and Jimmy Butler's journey from the 15th man on the Bulls to the team's best player was one of the better NBA storylines of this decade to me. But throughout that time, there was a lot of drama that somewhat overshadowed what was happening on the court. This wasn't that long ago, but there may be some details and news stories that you might have forgot about or never heard of, and made an interesting video that I think you guys will like. The ugliness and drama between Jimmy Butler and the Bulls front office goes back to when he was up for a contract extension back in 2014. The Bulls offered him a 4-year, $40 million contract. In negotiations, Jimmy and his agent felt that it was too low of an offer. Jimmy was coming off a career year in multiple stat categories and got on the second all-defensive team. The Bulls in response said that if you don't accept this offer, we will cut your minutes for Tony Snell in this upcoming year. The crazy thing about this is it wasn't coming from the coaching staff, this was coming from the front office. The people who don't control the live in-game decisions were telling Jimmy that we'll cut your minutes so your numbers drop and you'll regret not taking this contract next year. It was a good decision by Jimmy to not take that deal because he would break out even more in 2015. He averaged a career high again in multiple stat categories, got the NBA's Most Improved Player award, and re-signed with the Bulls to a 5-year, $95 million deal in the summer of 2016. This was good for Chicago because they now have a building block in Jimmy Butler in case Derrick Rose or Joakim Noah goes down with an injury or they have to move them in a trade. But it would not be a Bulls season if there wasn't some drama. During this time in Chicago, they fired Tom Thibodeau. Tibbs and the front office had many disagreements in that final year, which included things like who should play and who shouldn't. There was a lack of trust between the two, and they felt Tibbs had to go. Joakim Noah summed up that final season with Tibbs nicely with that quote, "There was definitely a disconnect between the coaches and management. It was a little bit of a mess, and to be a championship team, everybody has to be on the same page. It definitely was a missed opportunity." Moving on to the 2015-2016 season, the Bulls hired Fred Hoiberg, which signaled in a new offensive era in Chicago, but it wasn't exactly the best fit with their new star player, which I will get into later. At this time, Derrick Rose still felt he could get back to what he was during his MVP year, but the problem was, Jimmy Butler was the team's clear leader and best player. He was shouldering the Bulls on offense, defense, and took control of the locker room. This was a different situation for Derrick as he wasn't used to being the number 2 guy on and off the court. Him and Jimmy didn't hate each other or anything, they just did not click together on the floor. Both of those guys are ball-dominant players that aren't at their best if they're spotting up at the three-point line. Their roles basically changed from what they were back in 2012. Jimmy was now the face of the franchise and Derrick was trying to prove himself. There was a power struggle between the two. And the power struggle just wasn't with Derrick. Jimmy and Joakim Noah didn't see eye to eye in their final year together. To refresh your memory, Joakim's on-court play was falling off in 2016. He wasn't the same guy because of injuries he suffered. Joakim ended up losing his starting spot and he was not the go-to emotional leader for the team anymore, so this was a big adjustment for him as Jimmy took control of the team. Just like with Derrick and Jimmy, Joakim and Jimmy did not dislike each other or anything. Noah has seen Butler go from nothing to a star, but they had some locker room clashes in that final year. It was reported that Jimmy felt that Noah and the other players were not working as hard as he was. The report says that Joakim and some other Bulls players were late to team activities and Jimmy wasn't happy with that. That was a weird season for Chicago because the team was unrecognizable from what they were with Tom Thibodeau. The defense that the Bulls were known for disappeared and there wasn't much offensive production outside of Jimmy creating for himself and others. The Bulls missed the playoffs that year and they moved on from D Rose and Joakim in the summer of 2016. Derrick was traded to the Knicks and Joakim signed a 4-year deal with the Knicks. A few months later, Jimmy ended up admitting to the media that him, Derrick, and Joakim were not on the same page during their final year together. He said, "I don't think guys had different visions on what it took to win. I don't think everybody was on the same page, truthfully, for what guys' role was going to be." Moving on to the 2016-2017 season, the final year of the Jimmy Butler era in Chicago, which had tons of drama. They brought in Dwayne Wade and Rajon Rondo as their 2 big free agent signings. I remember the reaction when this happened. Everyone was basically saying, okay, who is going to shoot threes for this team? The breaking point for this team happened in January 2017 when the Bulls blew a 12-point lead to the Atlanta Hawks. Wade and Butler pretty much trashed the team's effort after the game. Wade said that the younger players don't care enough, and Jimmy basically echoed the same thing. They did not like how the team was playing, and a team meeting was called the next morning. Rondo also defended the younger players in an Instagram post that I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen. Here's the part where Rondo called out Wade and Butler. Rondo said that my vets would never go to the media, they would come to the team. Rondo also added this: my goal is to pass on what I learned. The young guys work, they show up, they don't deserve blame. If anything is questionable, it's the leadership. The Bulls' drama in the 2017 season did not end there. Not even a week after that Rajon Rondo Instagram post, news came out that the Bulls had spies in the locker room. Bulls assistant coaches were being accused of being snitches for the front office. The report stated that Jimmy Butler told players to be aware of assistant coach Randy Brown because he is not your friend. The rumor was that Jimmy would tell the younger players on the team to not criticize the Bulls management in front of assistant coaches because they would go and tell the front office. The thinking was that the Bulls want to get as much inside information on the players as possible so they can win the public relations battle when that player is traded or leaves in free agency. The source says that Jimmy said they did it with Luol Deng, they did it with Joakim Noah, and they did it with Derrick Rose. That's how they operate. Now, Randy Brown ended up denying those accusations and said he wasn't a snitch. Do you guys remember when this news came out? I was waiting for multiple Chicago trades to happen because it didn't seem like they could come back from what just happened in that week. It's now June 2017. At this point, the Bulls were at a dilemma because they were in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference and just lost in the first round. Should they move forward with Fred Hoiberg's vision for the team, which emphasizes more ball movement, or continue to build around Butler controlling most of the offense? Jimmy was in trade rumors for about a year around that time, and nothing was happening, so we were basically waiting for the Bulls to finally get an offer they felt satisfied with. That last year was ugly on and off the court, so personally I was expecting a trade around free agency, but it happened a bit earlier. They went through a trade that sent Jimmy to Minnesota, and now it was clear that the Bulls were looking to move into a rebuilding mode and trust Fred Hoiberg's plan. It was either one or the other because Jimmy and Fred did not see eye to eye from the moment he got signed as a head coach. Jimmy said this in an interview back in September 2017 when asked about his relationship with Fred Hoiberg. Jimmy said, "I'm confrontational, I feed off confrontation, it makes me go. Not everybody's like that. Fred is not that coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are different coaching styles." It's kind of funny because we're almost in the same situation with Jimmy in Minnesota. Jimmy is thinking about going to war with James Harden, while Karl Towns and Andrew Wiggins are thinking about going to war at Tilted Towers. And that's it for me. Any Bulls fans in here with anything to add? Basically, the drama can be boiled down to Chicago's best players were at different points in their career, the front office being insecure, and Jimmy's personality and play style not being the easiest for some players to mesh with if you're not at his level. I hope this was interesting to listen to and appreciate it if you made it to the end. I'll see you guys in my next one.